What if the difference between being broke at 65 and retiring a millionaire came down to one single dollar a day? Not $1,000 investment, not some secret stock tip. $1. That is the number that changed everything for a man named Daniel Mercer, a school bus driver from Dayton, Ohio, who never earned more than $42,000 a year in his entire life and still managed to die with over $1.2 million in the bank. Here is what most Americans believe about building wealth. They believe it requires a high salary, a financial advisor in a glass office, or some lucky break that never seems to come. The average American worker spends 40 years grinding away at a job, brings home a paycheck every 2 weeks, pays the bills, maybe grabs a coffee and a lottery ticket, and somewhere deep down holds on to a quiet hope that things will eventually get better. But they rarely do, not because people are lazy, not because they are not smart enough, but because nobody ever told them the truth about how wealth is actually built. According to a Federal Reserve study, nearly 40% of Americans cannot cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing money or selling something. 40%. And yet this same country has more millionaires per capita than almost any nation on earth. So what separates those two groups? Is it inheritance? Sometimes. Is it education? Occasionally. But more often than not, the answer is something so simple it sounds like a joke the first time you hear it. Here is the question that should keep you up at night. If someone handed you $1 right now and told you that this single dollar, treated the right way, repeated the right way, over the right amount of time, would make you wealthy beyond anything you ever imagined, would you believe them? Most people would laugh. Most people would spend that dollar on a pack of gum and forget about it by Tuesday. But a handful of people who understand something the rest of us were never taught, would do something radically different with it. And what they do next is the reason they end up in a completely different financial universe than the rest of us. By the time this story is over, you're going to understand the single most powerful principle in all of personal finance. You're going to see exactly how an ordinary person with an ordinary income used this principle to build extraordinary wealth. And most importantly, you're going to walk away with something you can start doing today with whatever is already in your wallet. Daniel Mercer grew up in a 2-bedroom house on the east side of Dayton with his mother, his younger sister, and a father who worked double shifts at a packaging plant and still somehow never managed to make ends meet. Money in the Mercer house was not just tight. It was suffocating. Daniel remembered watching his mother sort through envelopes at the kitchen table on Friday nights, pulling out bills, stacking them by urgency, and sometimes quietly setting aside the ones she could not pay that month. He never forgot that image. The fluorescent kitchen light humming overhead, her reading glasses sliding down her nose, her hands moving slowly like she was defusing something. Daniel graduated high school in 1987 and went straight to work. No college. The family needed income, not tuition bills. He drove a school bus for the Dayton City School District starting at age 19 and kept that job for 38 years. His highest salary was $41,800, and that was in his final year before retirement. He was not a man anyone would look at and think, now there goes a future millionaire. He got married at 24 to a woman named Carol, a quiet, practical woman who worked the front desk at a dental office. They bought a small house in a modest neighborhood, had 2 kids, drove used cars, and lived the kind of life that most Americans would recognize immediately. Normal, unremarkable, occasionally stressful. The turning point came in 1994 when Daniel was 26 years old. A coworker named Roy, a man who had driven buses for 15 years and seemed perpetually cheerful in a way that slightly annoyed everyone around him, sat down next to Daniel in the break room one afternoon and slid a piece of paper across the table. On it were 2 columns of numbers. Daniel stared at them, confused, then looked up at Roy. Roy explained it simply. He said that the year he started driving, he decided to put $1 a day into a retirement account. Just $1. $30 a month. He also said that every single year, on January 1st, he increased that amount by $1 per day. So the second year, it was $2 a day. The third year, $3. He said he had never once felt the pinch, never once missed a payment on anything, because the increases were so small, so gradual, that his lifestyle never had to dramatically change. But the math Roy said with a grin. The math was a completely different story. Daniel looked at the numbers again. It did not seem real. He flipped the paper over looking for the catch. That night, Daniel sat at the same kitchen table where he had watched his mother sort through bills, and he pulled out his own piece of paper and started running numbers. He was 26. If he started with $1 a day and increased by $1 each year, by the time he was 65, he would be contributing $65 a day, which is roughly $2,000 a month. But more importantly, the money he had already invested in the early years, those tiny, almost laughable early contributions, would have had decades to grow. In a basic index fund, averaging 7% annual returns, the compounding effect over that timeline produced a number that made Daniel put down his pencil and stare at the wall for a long time. He started the next morning. $1. He set up a payroll deduction into a retirement account and asked for $30 per month. Carol thought he was mildly eccentric, but supported it. It was $30, after all. They did not even feel it. The years passed the way years do. The kids grew up. The house needed a new roof. Carol's car broke down twice in 3 years. Daniel's mother got sick, and they helped cover her prescriptions. Life threw everything it normally throws at a working-class family in Middle America. But Daniel never touched that retirement account. Not once. And every January, he called HR and increased his contribution. $30 became $60. $60 became $90. By the time Daniel was 45, he was setting aside about $450 a month. It still felt manageable because he had never gotten used to having that money in the first place. It had always gone straight to the account before he could spend it. What Daniel had stumbled into was not a get-rich-quick scheme. It was something far more powerful and far more boring, which is precisely why most people ignore it. He had automated discipline. He had made wealth building invisible, habitual, and consistent across 4 decades of an ordinary American life. When Daniel retired at 63, he sat down with a financial advisor for the first time in his life. The advisor looked at his account statements and asked Daniel which financial firm he had worked with over the years. Daniel told him he had done it himself, with payroll deductions and index funds starting at $1 a day in 1994. The advisor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said Daniel had more in his retirement account than 85% of his clients who had been working with financial professionals for decades. $1,240,000. Daniel cried in that office, not because he was rich, but because he thought about his mother at that kitchen table, sorting through envelopes under the humming fluorescent light, and he realized that nobody had ever told her that this was possible. What Daniel discovered is called the power of incremental compounding. It works because of 2 forces working together over time. The first is compound interest, which Albert Einstein allegedly called the 8th wonder of the world. When your money earns returns, and those returns earn their own returns, the growth is not linear. It is exponential. The earlier you start, even with tiny amounts, the more violent and beautiful that exponential curve becomes decades later. The second force is behavioral consistency. Most people fail at saving not because they lack money, but because they try to save amounts that feel painful. They commit to $100 or $200 a month, feel the squeeze within 3 weeks, and abandon the plan entirely. Daniel's approach worked because the starting amount was so small, it was almost invisible, and the annual increases were so gradual, they never triggered the psychological resistance that kills most financial plans. He was essentially reprogramming his financial identity $1 at a time, training himself to be a saver before he even felt like one. The practical application is this. Open a retirement account today, whether that is a 401k through your employer or a Roth IRA through a brokerage. Set up an automatic contribution of $1 a day, $30 a month. Put in a broad market index fund. Then set a calendar reminder every January 1st to increase that contribution by $1 per day. Do not think about the account. Do not check it obsessively. Let time do what time does best. The most dangerous financial lie in America is that you need a lot of money to start building wealth. Daniel Mercer proved otherwise from the seat of a school bus on the streets of Dayton, Ohio, armed with nothing but a piece of paper, a payroll deduction form, and a willingness to start small and stay consistent. $1 a day does not sound like a revolution, but given enough time, given enough patience, given the quiet and relentless power of compounding, that single dollar becomes the first sentence of a story that ends with your family's financial future looking completely different from the one you inherited. Start today. Start with whatever you have. Because the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago, and the second best time is right now. If this story moved you, follow this channel. Every week we bring you stories like Daniel's, real lessons wrapped in real lives. Because the truth about money should not be a secret that only some people get to know.